Hey everyone, it's Samura Samurai, and I have to ask, have you seen part 1? If not, then go ahead, go watch it. There's a link in the description. Not that you have to watch these videos in order, but I'm assuming you have for the sake of the script, so this might make more sense if you watch part 1 first. Anyway, speaking of part 1, that did pretty well by my standards. I was going to do part 2 regardless, but seeing those little numbers tick up makes me that bit happy to post a sequel. We're going back to some more regional variant designs for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. In my last video, I took the Terastal aces of Paldea's first 4 gym leaders and turned them into regional variants based on their Terra types. Again, be sure to watch that first video, because in this video, we're going to be covering the second half of Paldea's gym leaders. Not much else to say here, honestly, so let's get right to it. Let's start this video off with the 5th gym leader of Paldea, the Done With Life businessman Larry. So he's a normal type specialist, and his Terastal Pokemon is a Staraptor, which is already a normal type. That's because he's also a flying type specialist when you fight him in the Elite Four later on. But still, that made my job a lot harder. So what I decided I'd do was I'd make a regional variant that removes Staraptor's flying type altogether, and just makes him a pure normal type. Either that or a normal type with some other secondary type. Surely this is fine and won't cause me brain problems trying to come up with something. So if you watched the first video, you might recall me foreshadowing the struggle of drawing a normal type Staraptor, and I was hoping somebody would come up with something in the comments section to help me out. Or at the very least, one of my internet friends would give me a suggestion. But no, neither outcome happened. Guess I'm entirely on my own here. Oh well, let's go. Something else I mentioned in that first video was wanting to tie in my regional variants to the gym leaders and their interests, so I could get some stronger themes for their designs. Like, Katie's a baker, so for Bug Teddier, so I pressed further on the honey theme. And Kofu's a sushi chef, so I made Water Crabominable a sushi chef as well. But for Staraptor, I kind of already decided not to go for that, since I didn't really think a Done With Life businessman would mesh well with a bird of prey that can and will throw hands with you. I actually tried incorporating the shape of Larry's hair into the design, but it didn't really work like I hoped it would. Besides, I'm not aiming to make a Staraptor who's a Larry cosplayer or something like that. It did give me a bit of inspiration for what I did do with Staraptor's crest in the end, but we'll get there. So to start things off, I had a vague idea in my head of a flightless Staraptor who has to fight with his legs or something, kind of like Dojo, who actually is a flying type and can learn fly. Everyone movesets are dumb. But anyway, I kept that idea in the back of my head, but I wanted some actual basis to make a design with more substance to it. So I checked on Bulbapedia to see what Staraptor's based on. Let's see, based on a Japanese species of starling, on birds of prey. So I looked up the harpy eagle and the long-crested eagle. They gave me a few ideas on how to shake up the design, but nothing was really clicking with me. Like, nothing from these designs would help me push Staraptor into flightless bird territory. During the pencil sketch process, I tried messing with the proportions, giving him smaller wings and bigger legs. It didn't work. I tried to specifically look up birds of prey that hung low to the ground, but I only found this article about someone who found a bird lying under a fence while they were playing Pokemon Go. Funny that. I also tried to look up birds of prey from Spain specifically, since Paldea is the Spain region, and that was something I didn't really do for my Pokemon in the first video. But I wasn't really finding anything that caught my eye, so I decided to shift gears again. And then, the idea of fighting with his legs made me remember cockfighting, the act of just throwing 2 chickens into a ring and watching them beat each other up. And then I asked myself if there was anything particularly Spanish about my idea. I mean, it didn't have to be, but that could still be fun, and oh hey, it's illegal! That's something, right? Anyway, I looked up cockfighting to see what those birds usually look like, and I quickly found myself pretty inspired. I gave him a big spiky crest, I made his tail feathers long and sharp, I gave him a spiky feather collar. I was having a lot of fun with these small changes. I felt the spikiness helped add to the shape language and make him look meaner than regular Staraptor. When it came to the digital drawing, I ended up making the collar less spiky because I tried to match the shape a bit more to Staraptor's feather pattern. Also with the shape of the red face, he ended up kind of looking like another normal flying bird, male and pheasant. I struggled getting the pose right for a bit, since I didn't draw animals super often, least of all birds. I actually did quite a bit of tweaking post-recording to get the proportions to look better. One last thing I'd like to mention with this Staraptor would be the colours. At first I referenced the colours of the cockfighting bird, then I compared it to regular Staraptor and realised that the colours were too saturated. Pokemon designs on the whole tend to have pretty soft colours, with some exceptions, and I didn't want my designs to look too far removed from that. Like, I know I'm not drawing in the actual Pokemon style, even if I am taking inspiration from the shading with these pieces, but this kind of stumped me because I really liked the colour scheme I already had. So as a compromise, I ended up splitting it up into 2 colour schemes. Go with whichever one you prefer. And here we are, Staraptor's out and ready for some illegal close combat! Given the cockfighting inspiration, he obviously had to be a normal fighting type. He kind of felt more like a fighting type than a normal type, but that already happened with Sudowoo though. It's fine. Those 2 were the ones that really stumped me conceptually. Okay, Next on our list is Ryme. She's my personal favourite gym leader of Paldea, mostly because of her design. Like, that skeleton hair is so fun! Stuff like this is why I love Pokemon character designs. So her Terastal of choice is a ghost-type Toxtricity. While Generation 8 has quite a lot of designs I don't like, Toxtricity definitely isn't one of them. Let's see how this goes. So I'll come clean here and say that I actually drew Toxtricity in the next Pokemon out of order. I wanted to save Toxtricity for later since I was pretty sure that this guy was going to take the longest to draw out of all of these type swaps. Partly because Toxtricity has two forms and I wanted to draw them both, but also because of the poses. I knew from the start that I wanted to make this Toxtricity a rapper, since that's Ryme's whole deal, and regular Toxtricity is a punk rocker, so that keeps the music theme going. As I've established in these videos, having a strong theme in mind can really help your design stand out more. Well, I knew I was going to find trouble making these poses look good, since stereotypical rapper poses tend to be very weighty and have a lot of hand swings and all. I think these proportions turned out kind of goofy. Remember, I'm not great at drawing animals, but I do like how the poses turned out. I think they've got some fun energy to them. Now, I did go back after I'd stopped recording to give the amp form's feet some fixing. They looked pretty off otherwise. With the pose out of the way, the next challenge comes from implementing the ghost type into the design. I didn't want to make Toxtricity a straight-up ghost, I just didn't think it'd fit him, and there are plenty of corporeal ghost types after all. So what I quickly decided on was bones. Taking themes from Ryme's design once again, I gave him a skull helmet, bones where the spikes in the original design were, ribs, and a kind of spinal column down the front to substitute for the guitar strings. I wanted the bones to look like they fit the creature, so I based them on the bones of a newt, which is what Toxtricity is based on. I was pretty excited to draw some bones on these guys since I've actually drawn a couple of full-on skeleton Pokemon before. Would people be interested in a video about my original Pokemon designs? Let me know in the comments. Back on topic, after I'd implemented the bones, the next big challenge came from Toxtricity's electric mane. I really liked that part of the original design, and I actually had a lot of fun recreating it while making a reference in my sketchbook. But for my regional variant, I was thinking I needed to do something different. I already knew I wanted this Toxtricity to be a Ghost Poison type, since the Miss Mages from my last video already has Ghost Electric covered, but on the other hand, the jagged shape of the electricity makes me think of a visual portrayal of sound waves, or like loud speech bubbles. But in the end, I decided to shake up the concept, mostly so I could make a more distinguished silhouette and sell the lack of an electric type better. While I was researching Toxtricity on Bulbapedia, I found out that the electricity may have been shaped to look like mohawk hair, and that got me really inspired. For this variant, I took some inspiration from black hairstyles, giving these noxious ghostly flames a kind of curled shape and a poofy silhouette, and that really helped this form stand out from the original. For the low-key form, I made the flames burst around his head like some kind of gravity-defying afro, and for the amped form, I tried to do more of a vertical dreadlocks look. I don't think it reads that way, but it looks cool regardless. I don't have a lot of experience in drawing black people, but I have wanted to give it more of a try lately, because I think that big hair like this looks like it's really fun to draw. As for the colour of the hair, I kept the yellow for amped and blue for low-key, but to make them feel more Ghost Poison, I pushed them both a little bit towards green. Speaking of green, I also later changed the colour of the body from purple to green, since changing the colours is pretty much the bare minimum to make your regional variant stand out compared to the original. And I really like how the green goes with the other colours, and together with the bones they kind of look like zombies, which is a cool secondary theme and really hammers home the typing. Come to think of it, I don't think I've seen any zombie Pokemon, official or otherwise. And there we are, Toxtricity's complete! Again, this piece took the longest because I was drawing two designs, but there was a lot of stuff in this design that was fun to bring to life, so hey, definitely worth it in my books. Third on our list, well actually I drew this 1 second, but details, is Tulip. Her Terastalmon is a psychic-type Florges. Now I'm a very big fan of the Flabebe line. I think their designs are really cute, and Florges has some pretty amazing stats. I don't even mind that they're not fairy grass type. Well, this was one of the first ideas I had when I came up with this Terastal type swap idea, so let's get going. So with Florges here, my first thought was, Tulip's got an Egyptian vibe to her, right? Especially given the music in Elfonada and some of its architecture, and most notably her signature Pokemon Esparfra being based on Cleopatra. So I wanted to follow along with this and make an Egyptian-themed Florges. The obvious direction would be to make her a pharaoh or something, but that's already been done by Esparfra. So I decided to try a different approach and instead make her an Egyptian goddess. As soon as I had the idea, my junior school mythology nerd brain quickly remembered the goddess Nut, who is the Egyptian goddess of the sky, stars, astronomy, the universe, stuff like that. Super fitting for the psychic type, since it's kind of also the cosmic type. Anyway, I've seen quite a few depictions showing that Nut herself is the night sky arching over the world, and hey, I'm a huge fan of the look of the night sky, especially when there are lots of stars. So why not? Let's make a Starry Night Flower Girl! So to start things off, I coloured her big flower masses to make them look like clouds of starry nebula, and I filled the main centre cloud with little stars for decoration, in place of the tiny flowers in the original design. I flattened the cloud so it doesn't show at the top of their head because I wanted to use that space to put a big golden disc on the head, like the bowl on top of Nut's head. At first I thought it'd be out of place with the rest of her design, but then I thought, hey, don't flowers have those yellow discs in the centre? So I figured that the disc would start as part of the flower with Flabébé, then it would come out when she evolves and becomes part of Floette's design, and then after that it grows and becomes Florges' disc thing. I changed her flower stem body into a sort of dress, taking some inspiration from Tulip and her fashion career, which also inspired the sassy looking pose I put her in. Though I suppose that was also inspired by Egyptian art in general. The process of changing the body shape meant I lost those big flower leaves that are a big part of Florges' silhouette, so I added these long curving veils as a substitute. But they looked out of place with the rest of the design, so later on I added the heart and line pattern from the leaves onto the veils. I also gave her these hooded eyelashes that I thought fit the Egyptian vibe. They were actually based on Azumi from Prison. I really like drawing the thick eyelashes on Azumi and Hokuto in that Prison video I made. I should definitely do that for some of my own characters. Another thing worth mentioning was how I tried to play with Florges' silhouette in general, with the shape of the flowers and the disc and the veils, trying to make her feel more distinct from her regular form at just a glance. I've been trying to practice silhouettes more in general. Giving your characters distinguishing shapes and features can really help them be more easily identifiable from one another. Between this and Toxtricity, I've really enjoyed doing the silhouette work in this video. And here we are, here's Paldean Florges. Given the sandy design, she definitely had to be a psychic ground type. And yes, just like regular Florges, she does come with the 5 colour variants. I'll probably post them all on Twitter if I remember. There's only one Pokemon left to cover, so let's hop on to the final Paldean gym leader, ironically the first one they revealed to us, Grusha. He's an Ice-type trainer, and his Terastal of choice is Altaria. I'll admit, I was not expecting Grusha to be the last gym leader, and I'm still kind of annoyed by it because Ice gets shafted to the late game once again. That being said, I had a pretty strong concept for Ice-type Altaria right from the start, but actually executing it? We'll see. So, Altaria is the Cloudbird Pokemon, right? Given that Grusha's gym is up in the snowy mountains, it was pretty clear that I had to go for a snow cloud aesthetic. But the problem is, Altaria's already got a very ice-type colour scheme, white clouds and blue body. I figured that the best way to go would be to invert these colours, so that the body is white and the cloud is more blue. The other hard part came from wanting to individualise the design a bit more, like accessorising to make her feel more like an ice type, as well as more of that silhouette stuff. Yeah, I know, I didn't have to change the silhouettes, I hardly changed them at all for some of the earlier type swaps, but I guess my standards shifted a bit over the course of this project. At first, the idea I wanted to carry into the design were these long, flowing veils, similar to the ones I gave Florges, but as more of a big scarf. And I decided I wanted to give them a pretty multicoloured look so that they'd look like auroras flowing from her body. These aurora veils, if you will. But the tricky part was, Altaria's body is mostly giant clouds, even with the wings spread out, and I quickly realised that these veils would be hard to make fit with the puffiness of the rest of the design. But Altaria already has a bit of a flowy element from those long crests on her head, so I was pretty confident that the veils could still work. In the end, I'm quite happy with them, especially with how I coloured and rendered them out. So to make her feel even more like an ice type, I had the idea of putting a big snowflake brooch on the front of Altaria, which was actually inspired by the Ice Terastal hat. And that quickly gave me the idea of connecting the veils to the snowflake, so that way they'd wrap around Altaria's neck and look even more like a scarf. And then I added more ice crystals stuck into Altaria's cloud like the snowflake does, to add more ice to the design. I made the clouds cover her neck to give a warmer look, and I wanted to shape her big tail like the end of the snowflake, but I ended up not really going for it. Not that it really matters since the tail's mostly obscured here. And there's not much else to say really. This was probably the most simple design of the whole video, not really based on anything, just the ideas I had in my head. I did decide to play around a bit with the way I shaded the clouds. I wanted them to look like soft pillows, though I don't think I really executed it right. Still, I really like how this art turned out in the end. So here we have it, here's Altaria. I can honestly think of 2 types to work here. I'd love to do Ice Flying because it's such a criminally underused type combo, but I think Ice Fairy really fits the Auroras. Let me know in the comments which one you'd want to go with. And here we are! The second batch of Pokemon is finished! And between this and the designs I made last time, that's a regional variant for all 8 of Paldean's gym leaders. These were genuinely so much fun to make. Sure, I got tripped up conceptually at a few points, but I was able to push through and make all of these designs that I'm pretty happy with. Plus they were pretty quick to draw, which is always nice. My favourite designs of this series would have to be Teddiursa and Toxtricity conceptually, and Miss Majors and Altaria visually. But I also have to give a shout out to Florges on both fronts. What did you guys think? Which design was your favourite? Would you use any of them on your team? I'd love to see what you say in the comments. As another thing to comment about, what other videos would you like to see from me? They can be more Pokemon designs, maybe my original Pokemon, something with my mini OCs, or just a series you'd like to see me make some fan art for, if I'm interested of course. But anyway, that wraps up this whole video. Like, subscribe, follow my Twitter and Instagram, all that stuff so you don't miss out on my art. Stay hopeful, don't give up on your dreams, make sure you double check how to pronounce the names of your Egyptian goddesses, and look forward to my next video. We're going back to some more regional variant designs for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. In my last video, I took the Terastal aces of Jimmy. Oh my. I always do that thing where I mess a line up and then I just do that. I don't know why I do it. It's become an impulse at this point. Okay, so Lex on our list. Taking themes from Ryme's design once again, I gave him a skull helmet, bones where the spikes in the original design were, ribs, and a kind of spinal column down the front to substitute for the Carl from Sonic Adventure! I don't even think that was what I actually said. Wow, I never thought you could mangle the word guitar enough to make it sound like a character from a Sonic game. We're going back to some more regional variant designs for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. In my last video, I took the Terastal?